to customize pages and how you can customize your own images to kind of spice up your website a little bit. And then I'll go over some different options for how to set up your calendar. There are some plugins that you can just load in your calendar information into WordPress and it does it for you. Otherwise, you can also just save it as a calendar as a PDF and embed it into your website. And there's also options for, so the sidebar that's on like the side of your website, that's called a widget in WordPress. So we'll go over how to customize that sidebar and what you might want to put into it. And then we'll cover some different options for laying out your homepage and the information that you might want to put into it. And then we'll wrap up by covering different techniques that you might want to use to maintain your website and just make sure that the content stays fresh and updated. And aside from that, did we have any special requests? And I will open up the chat function here and I'll keep this. I have my second monitor on the side here. So if you ever see me looking over to the side, that's what I'm looking at. My wall is not that interesting. And so if you do have any specific things, you can pop them into the chat as you think of them. If you haven't used Zoom in a while, you can access the chat by hovering your mouse down toward the bottom of the screen. When you get down toward there, a little menu should pop up and you should be able to see the chat icon. That's a little comment bubble on the bottom. And if it doesn't immediately show up, you can find the more button. It's like a little 3-dot icon that has the word more. If you click on that, then chat should pop up on there. If you're on an iPad or a tablet, that menu that I was talking about, they put it on the top of the screen. So if you tap toward the top of the screen, a little menu should pop up there. And there should be a little 3-dot icon and the chat is located in there if you're on an iPad or a tablet. All right, so I don't see anything popping into the chat for requested topics so far, so I will just get started here. So the number one question that I get is, I haven't used WordPress in a while. How do I actually get into it? So I will do that now. I'm just in a regular browser. I'm in my Firefox browser, but you can use Firefox, Chrome, Edge, pretty much anything works for it. Except for Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer doesn't support a lot of WordPress features anymore. So Chrome, Firefox, and sometimes Safari are my top 3 so far. Firefox is my default. But if you go to libraries.ne.gov/your city name, and I just happened to be in Neely's website recently, so I'll just type this in as an example. But you would just put in your city name instead of that one, and then a dash and WP-login. And my login information is automatically saved on my computer. If you don't have that saved on your computer already, it's the login and like your username and password that you should have received when you first set up the website. If you no longer have your password, you can email me and I can reset it for you. And I put my email in the chat. So when you first get logged into your website, it will lead you to your main dashboard. There's going to usually be some different pop-ups and maybe some little updates from WordPress for the different plugins that are loaded into the WordPress installation. But 9 times out of 10, you don't really need to pay a whole ton of attention to these updates because it's usually just, hey, we made a new thing in here. So I'm just going to close these. But I do love using Elementor. I'm just not going to rate them right now. So the main things that you'll use in your dashboard are the pages, posts, and events, and then this appearance block here. So to give you an idea of what this will actually look like on your real website, I'm going to go to Neely's website. So I'll open this in a new link. And I'll go over the parts of a website and what WordPress calls them so that you can find this part of the website and be able to make the change in the dashboard here so you know what WordPress calls it. All right, so this is your header image up here. I'll show you how to customize this image and where you can go to find the free images that you can edit and pop in here. This is actually a free image that I found on Pixabay, and I just used that as a header. And this is your menu. A lot of times, so this is how people are going to navigate between your different pages. And this is an example of what you could do with a home page. This is just a 3-column layout that has some different information in it. And then there's I'll show you how to make this little color block thing so you can set off different information and so that you can break up different sections of your website. And this is just another 3-column block that has an image and a button in it to help people know what's new in your library and what kind of materials they might want to check out. And then down below is your footer. So a lot of times people put the hours and contact information and sometimes some links over to social media. And down below, it'll give you the name of the theme that you're using, and it'll let people know that you are using WordPress. So Nirvana is the theme that is kind of my go-to just because it's so easy to customize. And so this one will let you change colors. It'll support pretty much any layout that you could possibly dream of. And between this theme and the Elementor plugin, pretty much the sky's the limit. All right, so now how do we actually make changes to this? And the last thing I'll go over is what an actual page looks like. So this was your home page. And some of you might have your blog postings as a home page. And your blog postings, if you choose to do one, will just have, it's basically a little blurb that you can put in that lets people know what's going on, some featured materials, events that's coming up, and different stuff like that. And so when you go to a page, this is when you're going to start to see your sidebar. So the sidebar is a collection of, this is a clickable image that'll just go over to an online catalog. A lot of times people like to put the hours and contact info just because that's one of the main reasons people go to a website. And then you can put some clickable icons to go over to different resources or things you might want to feature in the library. So Neely wanted to feature the Learning Express library, so they popped it in here. And if you have any local archives or newspaper archives, yearbook archives, you can either grab an image that is used by the newspaper, or you can create one and pop in like a little clickable image like that. And if you have people that come in asking for the same resources all the time, you can also put in a quick link references or resources link. So if you have any job seekers that come in a lot, or if you have people looking for the same specific stuff, you might want to feature that. And I see in the chat, there's a question about switching out from an old form to a new one, and I will be covering that. All right, so let me hop into our dashboard. And first I'll show how to do kind of that custom layout thing. But before we can do a custom layout, we kind of need to know what we're actually going to be doing. What do you actually want on your website? So I'm going to bring over kind of a brainstorming activity we can run through. All right, so in here, this is a chart of some of the common things that actually show up on a website. I am going to share this link over in the chat. and make sure that anyone can edit it here. So copy it, and I will paste this here. So if you could go into the chat and open up the link to this brainstorming sheet. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to start brainstorming different topics and ideas that you actually want to put onto your website. And once you tell me what you want to be on your website, then I will go over some different layout options that you can use to feature those items. So step one is to kind of review through this table here. And then once you've reviewed through it, you can go down to the second page and start typing in the different topics and items that you actually want to put on your website. And the category and menu heading will be what is actually listed and described up here. So how will you phrase this so that people know what it actually is? Oh, I accidentally just sent it to one person. Oops. And yes, sometimes tech happens. So you should be able to access that now. And I will give you a minute to sift through this top table while I sip my tea. And I will keep an eye down here for as people start adding things in here. And I can show you a layout for adding lit guides if you'd like. I did like the new materials that someone had typed out. Oh, and as a side note, I also do makerspace consultations if someone was looking for different things to try. And I can show you how to feature different events and materials and instruction resources on your website for a makerspace. And I will type in new materials. I saw someone had put it on there before, but then it disappeared, so I'll just pop it back on there. And a big question that's come up is a lot of libraries are putting on tutorials to show how to build new digital skills, but then they're also showing like digital databases and online databases. So what would you call digital skills or digital tutorials to let people know that like what it actually is? I'm not sure I have the perfect answer to that. I've gotten what other people have come up with and what I use on my website, but not sure it's the perfect solution. I called it digital skills training, but or technology training. If anyone has other recommendations, I am all ears or eyes since I'm reading it. So classes and training, events. All right, so I will use this list to kind of run through and start showing different layout options. And this is kind of a brainstorming activity that you can use when you are working to try to figure out what you actually want to put on your website. And a lot of times people will put in local resources, local history, about the library staff. And so you can also start putting in drop-down menus. So this about us, you might have meet the staff, library history, friends of the library. And I'm going to make this not bold just so it doesn't pop out against everything else. Meet the staff, library history, friends of the library. And if you're not able to get into this document, but you do want to add some things on here, you can put them in the chat and I will pop them in for you. And classes and training, you can also make kind of a bulleted list of specific trainings that you have available. And you can make a information page about who's teaching this and when it's available and the types of things you have available. And the local history and genealogy can also be a great place for kind of an image gallery. If you have any pictures of the local area, or if you have pictures of important people from history that you want to feature in there to just show people what's possible on there. And so then in the menu heading, so some of these menu headings are going to be the exact same thing as the topic, and some of them might switch up a little bit. In this case, they're pretty much the same, but I put in both of them just because there have been instances where it's been a little different. And so events, I'll also put in programming and events. Same thing, but everyone calls it something a little different. All right, so I am going to switch this over to my other screen so I have it as kind of a reference point. And now I can go over some different layouts that you can use with the new Gutenberg editor. just in case you haven't had a chance to use it too much. So I'm going to go into my main dashboard once I've logged in. Then I'll go to Pages and Add New. And first I'm going to go into my training account so I don't mess with Neely's website. I'm not sure she'd appreciate that. So we'll go into training 1. All right, now I will add a new page. So pages, add new. I will close this one out so this loads a little quicker. All right, so first things first, whenever you add a new page, this will open up in the regular Gutenberg editor. And this uses a block style editor to add new things into it. So I will put in, let me look at my list here of what you actually wanted to add in here. So let's do a, new materials. There's a few different ways that you can do this. So I'll start with the new materials and then I'll hit this plus sign to add a block. Now a little menu will pop open with the available blocks that you can put in there. I'll click on this browse all so that we know everything that's available to us. So by default, this is going to go into a single full column layout. So if you were to type a paragraph in here, it would fill up the entire block area. But if you don't want to do that, there's also, if you scroll down a little bit, there are columns. So I'll click on this design section, the columns, and I want a 2-column layout. So on this left-hand side, you can click in this plus sign to add a new item in here. And I will add an image. Then I'll upload an image of a book cover just as an example. And because I happen to have some book cover images already loaded, why not? And then you can hit the plus sign on this right-hand side. And you can either put in a paragraph that says, and you'd probably want to put the date in here. I'll just make one up. Time. And then you can insert a form in here. So I know that there was a question about forms in here. Let me reread this and I can show you how to add forms. So replace an old form with a new form. So that's what I can show you how to do here. So I'll click this and I'm going to go into save as a draft because I don't want to publish this to make it public yet, but I do want to keep the changes that we made so far. So I'll hit save draft. Now I'm going to hit this plus sign, go into browse all, and now I'm looking for WP forms. So it's in the widget section and WP forms. So it's going to ask me to select an existing form, or if I don't have one already, I can create a new one. So to create a new form, if you don't have one, you go into this, the left-hand side here, and go to WP Forms. And I'll go to all forms just to show you what that page looks like. And it's going to ask me to leave the page because I made this change, but I didn't save it yet. But we're going to leave just because it takes 2 seconds to add that back in. So I'm loading the WP forms. So if you do have any forms, a little table of your existing forms will show up here. If this is the first form that you're creating, there'll be a big button that asks you to create your first form. We'll click on that. And so if you are making a contact form that you, for like a contact us page, there is a pre-built one that has all the common forms already, all the common form fields already put into it. The name, email address, add a message, add a subject, and things like that. But we're going to start with a blank form. And we'll start by asking people their name. So just all of your available fields will be on this left-hand side here. Then you'll click and drag it into the blank form field. And then the first and last name will pop in here. And then you can ask people for an email address so you're able to contact them if you have any questions or be able to reach out to them with any registration information. And then you can put in some different fields for a message, or you can add, if you were asking people to sign up for a specific event, you can add a multiple choice. And then you can, and when you click into this block, you can make changes to the labels in here. Which event would you like to register for? And first choice is story hour, and then adult book club, and knitting club. Choose the event. To sign up. And we'll say that this is required because we definitely need to know which event they need to register for. Whenever you say something was required, it'll give that little red asterisk so that they won't be able to submit the form unless they fill out that field. And so one other recommended thing to add is a CAPTCHA. So the CAPTCHA is the I am not a robot button. So the I am not a robot button is what they put onto forms to prevent you from getting a whole mess of spam so that a bunch of bots don't try to fill out your form 8 million times. And so that it's just more secure. So, but when I click and drag this CAPTCHA over, it should give me, there it is. So it'll tell me that the CAPTCHA settings have not been configured yet. But once you drag that over, there's a step-by-step tutorial in here that shows you how to do it. So you just need to set that up once, and then you can use CAPTCHA on all the forms that you have on your website. And you'll also want to change the name of your form. So if you click on the name of the form, you can say event registration. I don't really need a description. We kind of know what it is just from the name. And if you want to change the submit button to a register for event, you can change submit to a register, but I'll just keep it as a submit. And I usually keep this anti-spam on there just for safety. And then we'll click off of this, save it. Now we'll go back into the fields on the side here, and you can add as many fields as you want to on here, but let's just assume that this is what we want it to look like. So every time you make any changes, just make sure you save it. And then you can click on this embed. So the embed page, the embed option is going to let you embed it into an existing page on your website, or you can create an entirely new page to put your form onto. So you might want to create a new page if you're making a contact us form, but if you're asking people to register for an event, you can go to the select existing page, and then I will choose the page that I just created, which is, oh, what did I call that again? Oh, I didn't publish it yet. It's not published yet, so it won't actually show up in this list. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to use a short code. So I'm going to click on use a short code and then copy this. So if you click an existing page that you already published, you can just pop it in there. It takes 2 seconds. If you haven't made your page yet, just copy the short code and I'll show you how to put it in there. So now we want to, our form exists now. So we're going to close out of here. And now I'll go back into that draft that I had made. So pages, all pages. And I'll scroll through here until I find the new materials draft that I just made. And then I'll hover over, click edit. So now we have our WP forms that had saved automatically for us. I'll drop this down and now it says event registration. So that is the quickest way to do it. If for any reason this doesn't work for you, you can add a block and put in, go to browse all and go to short coder here. And you can copy and paste that short code and select it. There's an easier way to do this actually. Remove block, add it, browse all, code, and short code. Honestly, this is just going to be the easiest way to do it. Grab that WP form block, put it in, you're good to go. But this will also work if this doesn't work for you for whatever reason. I don't see a reason why it shouldn't. So WP forms, grab your form. So I will remove that block. We don't need 2 forms stacked on top of each other. So in the case of a scholarship application, you can actually make that a separate page and put like a blurb of what the scholarship's all about. And then people can register for it right then and there using that embedded form. And all you have to do is go to WP Forms, make your form, and it'll ask you which page you want to pop it into. So just make your page first and then go to WP Form and your life's easier. All right, so when you are ready to publish this, you can hit the publish button in the upper right-hand corner. It will make sure that, so you just want to make sure that this is going public and that it's not password protected or anything. There are times when you will want to make a password protected page. That'll come up if you're using like a third-party summer reading program and they say only the people that log in are going to be able to access the content. We don't want people from all over anywhere to be able to access it, in which case you would want to click on password protected and create a password. And then you can hand out this password to the summer readers that want to access the page. And that way you're happy, the third-party place you went through is happy, everyone's happy. But 9 times out of 10, you want it public so that people don't have to mess around with that. It'll be really annoying to have to put in a password to visit every page in a website. No one would ever do it. And if you do want to start publishing a page or a blog posting, you can also schedule it for a later date and time. So if you want to create pages or description pages for different events, or if you have a makerspace that you're going to be opening, but it's not quite ready for the public yet, you can start drafting out the page and then set it to publish on June 19th if you'd wanted to. And then when you change this date, the publish button will switch over to a schedule. So I clicked off the field, it recognized that it's a different day, and it turned into schedule. And when you hit on schedule, when you go back into your page listings, it will be listed as scheduled, and it'll remind you of the date that it actually is going to be scheduled. And at any point during this process, if you want to double check and make sure that the page is looking the way that you want, you can always go to this preview and preview a new tab. And that preview button will also give you an idea of what that same page will look like on different devices. If you saw on that drop-down menu, there was an option. We looked at it in a new tab in a desktop, and that's what it would look like here. But you can also preview it on a mobile device, and it'll show you how your same layout is going to look on a mobile device. So you'll see that it stacks the image on top and then your description and then your forms at the bottom. And then if you switch it to tablet, you can see the way that it'll look on there. And that's kind of even if you don't manually test it out on every different device, it does help to test out your layouts on using this preview button to make sure that does look good on desktop, tablet, and mobile, because those are the top 3 places that people are actually going to be accessing your website. And if people are looking for hours in contact, usually they're on their mobile phone just coming out of the grocery store, and they want to make sure that you're open. All right, so I'm going to switch my preview back over to desktop. And if for any reason you don't see this right-hand menu here, you can click on this gear icon, the settings icon, and that's what makes that menu pop open and pop closed. All right, so the other thing that you might want to change on here is there are different block settings on here. So whenever you click onto a block, there are going to be additional settings that show up in the block side on the right here. And that's why whenever you have an option, I recommend doing your edits on a desktop, just because it'll be easier for you to access these additional things on the right-hand side here if you're on a desktop versus if you're on an iPad or a smartphone. But in a pinch, you can access your WordPress editor on all those different devices. It'll just look a little different. But so anything and everything on here is going to, if it has an additional setting in the Gutenberg editor, it'll show up on the right-hand side here. So I did say that I would show you how to do that color block setting. So if I do the plus sign to add a block, I'll add a paragraph this time. And now I'm going to do this is a random paragraph. So now you'll see that when I added that block, it shifted automatically over into this column. So if you did actually want this to be its full block going across the width, you'll want to cut this out of here, cut the text out, and we'll click in here to add the block down below. So whenever you add columns, there's going to be 2 plus signs. there'll be one plus sign inside the column. There'll be another plus sign that's available in below this column. And you want to aim for the plus sign where it's at, where it asks you to start writing or type to choose a block. Otherwise, you might get a little bit frustrated trying to add content in there and keep going, why in the world does he keep putting it on the right side? I want it down here. So if you want it on the full width, aim for this text and you'll get it in there. So hit the plus sign, paragraph, type in the thing, and I'm going to hit the enter sign. And you want the color block around here. So I clicked in here. We'll go to the settings on the right-hand side here and find color settings. So you can change your font color if you'd wanted to. So you can change it from black to pretty much any color that you wanted, but I'll keep it black for now. And you can also change your background color. So this will do the color block setting on here so that you can set off different blocks of information or feature different information. So if you have, and hopefully this doesn't actually happen, but if you do have another COVID closure or something like that, then you can use that to kind of set off the closure setting and say the library will be closed from da 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 da. Or if you have a holiday closure, you can say the library will be closed on Christmas Day or whatever it may be. And you can, if it's Christmas, may as well make it green. And you can also change the size of your font. So by default, it goes to this size, but you can also make it a larger font or a medium or specify the font size on here. So if you really want people to know this, then you can make it giant. So those are kind of the main things that you'll probably use on the paragraph setting, is to just be able to block off those different colors or to change the font color. If you do want to have a specific color, you can click on custom color and you can switch it over to pretty much anything. And I will show you one other tool that I use quite a bit. That is called coolers.co. And I will just go to this website here. Howdy. So coolers.co is a color palette generator. So if you are wondering which colors will work together well, this is the one to go to. If you click to start the generator, it'll start off with one color palette. If you hit the space bar on your keyboard, it will switch around to different colors. And you can hit spacebar as many times as you want to until you find at least one color that you like. When you find one color that you like, you can hit this little lock sign on here. It'll lock it closed. And now when you hit the spacebar, it will change out these different colors. And you can lock in different colors and switch them around until you find the settings that you actually want to try. And I'm just grabbing like just a set of random colors that just kind of match together, just as an example. So now if you want to use one of these colors, you can grab I'll grab this one. So there's a little copy hex button on here. So I'll click that, go back into our page here. And this is my preview. I want this one here. So we'll click it in here, go to my color settings. Let's just say that I want to change the background color. I'll click on custom color and copy and paste this into the hex key that's down here. So now it might be easier to read a white font against this instead of a blue now. So I will click back in here so that my settings show up again, switch it over to white, and now there's our new block. And one other thing I'll point out here is that you see that there's a white font against the color, and then there's a dark font against the color. So this website will automatically change this color based on readability. So whenever this changes white, I usually know to automatically by default change my font color to white, just because I know that it's easier to read that against that background than it would be against this one. That's why I use this website a lot, just because, mostly because of that. All right, so this is kind of how you might be able to lay out so if you have like a book club event, or if you have a new book that's coming in that you have a specific activity that's coming up, or a children's activity that's coming up. But probably the easier way to do new materials is to just use an image gallery. So I'll show you how to remove these blocks too. So I'll click on this, and then I'll go to this upper right-hand corner where it says options and go to remove block. And then I'll click on this because we don't want this anymore, remove the block, and click on that one, remove the block. And this actually got inserted in. Anytime you hit the enter sign on a line, it will automatically add a new block. So that's why each one of these turned into its own block. So remove the block. And now let's assume that we want to keep this here, but it's supposed to be at the top of the page. You can change the order of stuff by using this arrow button to move it up. So now you have your info block up here. Now I'll show you how to add an image gallery to show off new materials. So we'll click in here, hit the plus sign, go to browse all, and then I'm going to scroll down until I find gallery. So gallery, and now we'll go to upload. Now I have a mess of different book covers that are loaded on here. I'm just going to grab a little smattering of them. So on here we go. So I will actually drag this over here. So I went into my file explorer. That's what opened when I hit that button. Now I'm just going to click. I'll hit the control key, hit and hold the control key to grab a bunch of these at one time. Grab some more and open. And they will automatically insert themselves and size themselves. So the great thing is that if you are using book covers that are all pretty much the same size, they will automatically line up neatly like this. So I usually like to grab my book covers from Amazon just because I know that they're all the same size. Once you've saved them and loaded them in, you can't really tell where they actually originally came from. They could have come from Amazon, they could have come from Goodreads, they could have come from anywhere. Every book cover for every book looks exactly the same, no matter which website you actually grabbed it from. So just grabbing it from Amazon, make sure that they're all the same size and that they are large enough to read and that they don't get pixelated. And if you are using wider photos, this image gallery will automatically size them so it's a 2x2 instead of a 3x3. So it will automatically do it. And you can also change the image sizes on here if you want to shrink it down. But I usually just leave it at the full size or at large, just because I just think it looks cleaner that way. And you can also manually change the number of columns. So you can switch this to 2 if you had wanted to. They'll get a little bit bigger. And you can also switch it to 4 or more. You could probably get away with 4 since these are big enough. And then we'll schedule it because we had told the computer that we want this to be publishing in June. And you can also preview it. So I'll show you what it would look like in a desktop. And this will just take a second to load. Anytime you have 2 of these tabs open at the same time, it'll just take a little longer to load. So this is what it would actually look like on a desktop. And then this is mobile and tablet. So based on the tablet, I might actually switch this over to a column of 3, just because it'll be easier to read it. So we'll switch it over to 3, and that looks a little better on tablet. Now I'll go back to my desktop preview, and I see something came into the chat. So let me just glance at that for a second. That is a good question. The form that I had put together before, there was a question about the how to completed registration show up. So I saved this. Now I'm going to go into WP Forms, and it'll go to all forms. I don't really care about the changes I made on here, so I'll just leave it. I'll go into my event registration form and go to edit. So once you've set this up the way that you want it to, you can also go into your settings, sorry. So settings and notification. So in notification, the send to email address by default is going to be the admin email. That is the email that you set up when you first set up the website. So usually by default, that is actually my email address just because that's our default, but you can also change it to yours. If you didn't do that, you can put in, or if you want it to go to someone else in your library, you can put in a specific email address. And if you want this, the from email is going to be what is displayed on the person who submitted the form. So if you want your email address to show up to the person who's asking the question, you can also put it in here. And if you want, so the email subject is going to show up in your, it's going to be the phrase that shows up in your email that shows that a new form has been filled out. So in this case, you would say event registration, so you know what this form is all about. And you can say that it's from your library name. So by default, this will give you a message that has every field that was filled out. And then you can save this. And now anytime someone fills out a form, you'll get an email notification that this had been filled out. And you can, in this confirmation, you can also customize what people see once they filled out the form. So instead of thanks for contacting us, you can switch it over to thank you for registering for an event with or whatever phrasing you happen to prefer. And if you prefer, you can also send people over to a specific page on your website. So if people had signed up for a children's story hour, you can send them over to the children's story hour or the children's story hour description or other children's related events or activities that they might want to sign up for. So it'll just shoot them over to a page with more info. And you can also go over to a specific website that this would be an external website, but the most common ones are usually just the message. That's kind of the default. or if you happen to want to, a different page in your own site. And then you can save this setting. And now your notification is set up so that you know when people did it. All right, so that is kind of how you would set up any brand of form on here. So let me close this out because we updated our settings on the form here. And I'm going to look back over at the list of items that you had wanted to put on here. And it is 1:57. I want to make sure that we actually get to everything in here. So we did the new materials, and I'll do a makerspace page too to show some different layouts. So I'm going to go back into, and there's a question about, can you embed an existing form such as a Word document? You can, if you have a form through Google Forms, you can embed a Google form. You can also embed different PDFs. So if you had wanted to have people download your form, print it, and send it in, you can embed that PDF. Actually, I can show you how to do that. So pages, all pages. And I will add new. And I'll close this just so it goes a little quicker. Then I'll do the sign up form. And now instead of typing anything in here, you might do event service description up here. And then below here, we'll hit the plus sign, and then I'll go to browse all. And there is a PDF embedder. And then you can click here to open media, and I will upload a file here. Select file, and I will grab just some random PDF that I have saved in here. Yeah, Oh, here. I will use the flyer to this workshop just because I have it saved in PDF too. So we'll open it. And then once it's loaded in, this select button down at the bottom right will eventually turn blue. And once it turns blue, we'll hit select. And so by default, the preview is only going to show this PDF, and then this link is where WordPress stored the PDF. So when you hit preview a new tab, eventually, and then this will display your PDF. So if you do have a sign up form that you had wanted people to look at or download, then you'll be able to do that. If you wanted to add a download link, you can also do, so we'll go into add new page, and then I'm going to go into media and library. So if you want to add a link that says to download and to download this form, do this. I'm going to media, library. I'm waiting for the images to load in here. So I'll click open this link to the WordPress Workshop flyer, but it can be any PDF that you happen to load in here. I will copy the URL to the clipboard, and then I'll close this, go back into my page. So I'll go to pages, all pages, and then I'll navigate back over to that sign up form page that we've been editing. So sign up form, it's in draft. I'll go to edit it. So now we want that download PDF. I'll hit this plus sign, go to the paragraph, download the sign up form at this link. And then you can highlight this. We're going to turn it into a link. So I'll click this chain link, and then I will type in, I'll copy and paste that URL that I just grabbed from the media library, and then click on open it in a new tab and apply it. So now I'll preview. I'm going to close this old preview, click on this new preview, preview a new tab. And I will scroll down here and you can download it. So we click on this, it'll open it up in a new tab, and then people are going to be able to grab it from here. If you want to, you can also put in directions to say, if you're in Chrome or Firefox, look in the upper right-hand corner and click the download button, and then you can save it to your computer. So if you saw that it took me a second to be able to scroll all the way down here, you might want to put the download button above this so that people know that it's an option without having to scroll. So you can go back here, go to this download the sign up form, and then hit the plus sign arrow so that it's above your PDF. And now when you preview it, people don't have to dig to be able to download the form that's on there. You probably have a pretty good idea of what this is going to look like, but this is what it'll look like. Event description, maybe a little blurb about how to download, and then this link. And so let me go back into this page here. And I did say that I was going to show you an option for formatting a makerspace page. So I'm going to get rid of some of the stuff that's on here. So I'll clean the slate here, clean this, remove this block, remove our embedded PDF. When I clicked it in there, it clicked into the option to upload a document, but I just closed that out. So I'll hit the three dots to remove it, and I'll change the name of this page to Makerspace. And I'm going to make sure that my computer accepts this as a real world, like a real word, just because to me it is. So I'm going to right click on it, add to dictionary. Now it's added to the dictionary in my computer. And now, so in the average makerspace, the first thing that you'd want to do is start brainstorming what you actually want on the page. I usually do that just in like a little pen and ink sketch on a sheet of paper. I'll do like a little large rectangle for any images that I want to show up. And then I'll do kind of like squiggly lines that'll show where I want the text. And then I'll put in any drop-down menus or any options that I want to add in here. And then once I have a baseline of what I actually want it to look like, then I'll start building it. One other thing that you might want to try to do is go to either other library websites or other websites in general and start making kind of like an inspiration board to show what you actually want to try on your library website. And once you know what you want to try, it'll be easier to start learning the features that you need. And that's also an easier way to ask for help too. If you send me a link to a website and put like a little rectangle around the part that you want to copy and say, how can I make this? Then that'll also make my life easier in trying to figure out how to best help you do your layout and how to help you solve the problem. So I'm going to hit this plus sign here, and we're going to say that I want an image on this side. There's going to be a text of what that image is, maybe a caption of where this was located and what people were doing. And then I'll do an image gallery of the different makerspace style activities that you have available in the library. And there'll be a little click open that people will be able to navigate to those different options. All right, so I'll start with that side-by-side image and description. I'll hit the plus sign for the block, go to browse all, and now I want that. So there are different 2-column layouts that would let you do it, but there's also this specific media and text block that will automatically put it side by side. So this left-hand side, you're going to be able to put an image and the content on the right. You can also change the layout of this so that the image is on the other side. But we did say that we wanted it on the left-hand side. So I'll upload this, and you can put in an image of your actual makerspace, but this is just kind of a default image that I had. So we'll do that. All right, so that is kind of like a baseline of how you would show off different featured events. And you can also put this text onto the image itself. And sometimes that can be a little bit splashier and kind of draw attention a little bit more. So the little later on, I will be showing you how to customize images using GIMP, which is a free image manipulation tool. It's basically like the free version of Photoshop. So that's what I use just because I'm cheap. But if you have Photoshop, then by all means go with that. And so we were going to add an image gallery of the different things that are available in the makerspace. But you can put in an add block to put in a heading that will show what's coming up next. And then you would put in your image gallery. So we'll do an add block, go to browse all, and go to, so there's a couple different ways you can do the image gallery, and I'm actually going to do it a different way. So the gallery that I showed you before for the new materials, I use this gallery block, and it let me add in each different thing individually. Like it let me add a bunch of different images all at the same time. But instead, I'm going to use a column layout, and I'll show you why in a second. So I'll use this 3-column layout, and now I'll add this plus sign and the image. Then I'll upload it. And this is going to be assuming that you have like a picture of a robot or a picture of something that you have available, maybe a sewing machine or just whatever you have. I'm scrolling through my images just to see what I actually have for offhand for makerspace stuff. We'll grab this one here. So let's assume that you are playing around with virtual reality. So you grab a Oculus. This is not actually a picture of the Quest, but just assume that you have a Quest. Virtual reality. So now the reason that I used it as an individual, like an individualized image instead of as the gallery is because I can now better customize what this image is going to, how people can interact with it. So I can turn this image into a link and I can send them over to Oculus's website, or I can send them over to a page on the library website that describes what the Quest is and how you can use it. And while I am thinking about it, I will also put in a link to the tech kits. So if you are looking to dive into different technology or different things in the library, these are tech kits that are available through the mail. You can actually check out a VR headset. This one. So you can check out, I have drones, I have a couple different kinds of robots. This is an augmented reality cube. So an augmented reality cube is you put on this little headset or you hold up your phone and you see little digital images overlaid onto here. So this little dude can turn into a globe, or it can turn into, there's a little human diagram that can show up on here. There's just a mess of stuff you can do with it. And you can actually borrow this now. So I actually had these put together a while ago, but then I couldn't send them out because of COVID. There were COVID restrictions for when I could actually send any of the stuff out, but I just got the all clear to start sending it out. So I will put this link out here. So these are tech kits through the mail. You can keep them for up to 30 days, and then you just mail it back and you can try out a different one. I am working on adding more kits to this collection, but budget's willing. So VR headsets, I recommend the Quest. The Go, they're no longer supporting, but I'm trying to replace all my Go's with Quests. And snap circuits are just a must. You can build your own radio, just a mess of stuff. To request a kit, you can click onto any of these request kit buttons, and that's just a quick form to fill out your email, the name of your library, who to send it over to, and then when you pick a kit and go to next, oh, I forgot to put this in here. Next. Then it'll ask how many you actually want, and if the kit's not available, which one you would want instead. All right, so once you've filled out this whole thing, then the email will get sent over to me and I will mail it over to you. So I will close this. I'm not actually going to submit it because I don't need a random submission to it. And if people want to learn more about any of this tech stuff in here, there is a high tech section that you can send them over to. So if people want to know why in the world VR actually matters in anywhere in the world, there is a section on here. And it looks like I do need to fix this menu. I've been playing with my code, so I'll fix that in a second. And I actually, looking at it, I know what actually broke with it. I just need to fix it. It's a file navigation menu issue. I'll fix it tonight. All right, so if you do want to send people over to something like this page over here, once I actually fix it, then you can send over to this page and say, so we'll click back into this plus sign here and add a paragraph to learn more about robots or virtual reality. And then you would just put in the link. And you can go to this link, open it in a new tab, and there we go. But it'll look a lot better visually if you just make a whole bunch of images on here and then put like a little text description down below here. So I am going to remove this paragraph block, remove block, and you can add in another little 3-column down here to add in either more images or a description block. So you can add in image, upload, oh, let me see the next one I have up here. Let's grab this dude. And you're just basically grabbing different images to fill in what you've got. I'll add one more just to give the full what it would look like. Let me grab, I think I've got a little robo dude down here. And you can also say that people can learn 3D design. Oh, wrong file format. My bad. I tried to add in a 3D object, but of course this doesn't support 3D objects. It's only 2D. So that's why it gave me that error. I'll just put this in just because it's fun. And then you can feature in different activities. So you can put in a mini heading, 3D design class, and then hit an enter sign. And you can also put like a date and time if you have like a specific time that you wanted this to be. And then you can put in a heading for Robotics 101. And one more. So we'll do heading and you might want circuits. Oh, the fabric circuits. So this would be how people can figure out how sensors are used to make video games. Like you can put on like a full bodysuit and there are different sensors that are on your hands and on your feet and just on every joint you have. And those sensors read what your body movements are making and it maps it over to a digital platform. And that is how they make some video games. So it actually mimics real movements and you can do CGI effects with it. So there are both free, low cost, and freakishly expensive options to show how that works. Um, but this is about WordPress. We'll stick with that. All right, so that's kind of how you can show off different events that you have coming up and the different activities that you've got going on. And if you had wanted to, you could also use your photo editor to make sure all of these are the same size image so that they kind of line up neatly instead of getting kind of offshoot like that. So when you line up images and design them so that they fit inside the right box and fit in like a little line, it just looks a lot cleaner and it's more visually appealing. New page. I'm not too worried about saving this one that we just did because it was just demonstration. And while my new page is loading, I'll sip my tea. So now when you add a new page, the first thing you want to do is add the title. If you don't add the title, and once you switch over to the Elementor editor, it's going to generate just a random jumble of words. So we'll do makerspace, take two. Actually, I'll just call it makerspace goodness. And edit with Elementor. And I'll show you the difference between the two so you can decide which one you want to use. And if you have used the regular WordPress editor in the past, you probably saw that a lot of those features were not there before. So that those extra block features, a lot of them were added in the last year or so, and some of them were actually added probably in about the last month or so. So if it looks completely new, that's because it was. So this is the Elementor plugin. The Elementor plugin has been available on this WordPress installation for probably about 2 years, maybe more, give or take. Don't quote me on that. It's been around. But so this is your alternative if you would prefer it. Some people say Elementor is easier. Some people say it's harder. Some people say I'll try it, but here's what it looks like. So it uses a similar block system. So there is a plus sign to add a new block, but this one will start out right away by asking you how many columns and what kind of layout you want. So if you do want to have a custom sidebar that you don't want to mess around with using the widgets or anything like that, you can actually build in your own custom sidebar using this, and then you don't have to go anywhere separate to lay anything out. You would do that by going to this last block here, and then you would go to this plus sign. You can add in your text, and in this case, you can use a text editor. And some people like this one more just because if you remember on that other one, whenever you hit the enter key, it automatically added a new block. With this text editor, it doesn't do that. So you can add in, we'll just delete this text here. I'll add in a heading. And so if you have something new that's coming into your makerspace, you can say, And then, so this you can use as your sidebar, and I'll show you how to remove this sidebar so that you're not double sidebarring it. But you can add this plus sign, and then you can add in an image. Then you'll click on, once you've added in that image, you would go to the left-hand side of the board to make any changes to that image. And so we'll click on this overdrive and go to insert media. Apparently it didn't take it. We'll try it again. There it is. So now you want to, I'll keep this at the size it is now so that it kind of fills up that whole space. And then we'll make sure that it is centered in that area. And then you can make it a link so that it actually links over to Overdrive. So we'll go, this isn't the actual link that you would use to go to Overdrive, but let's see if I can actually get to it. Oh, there we go. So let's send it over to Overdrive. Go to settings. We'll open it in a new window just so people can more easily get back over to your library website. And there we go. So then you can publish this. And then I'm going to go back into, so Elementor has kind of got like a little quirk to it, and that's to get back over to the main dashboard. You would go into this little menu in the upper left-hand corner and then exit to dashboard. I don't know why they put it over there instead of just making a quick link over to it, but I'll take it. So now if you are going the route of putting the sidebar using the Elementor layout, you would want to turn off the original sidebar so that it doesn't just look weird. So to do that, you want to go back into this settings page, this settings menu, and you want to make sure you're in the page option. And then you'll scroll clear down to where it says page attributes, and then go to template. And instead of default template, you can go to one column, no sidebar. Elementor full width will also work, but one column, no sidebar. And then update it. And preview. So we'll preview it in a new tab, close this other preview. And there it is. So now this will give you a little bit more control of how your website looks, and it'll let you not mess around with having to go to the extra setting to play around with that sidebar. And then you click over and it'll open up Overdrive. And of course, you would just add in more little blocks on here. So you can put an image gallery over here, and then you might be able to add in your hours of operation right here and your contact info and things like that. So let me go back into Edit with Elementor. So anytime you open up a new page, I'll go into this all pages over here, and I will show you a quick link that will let you hop straight into Elementor instead of loading this twice. So from your main page of tables, you can go to this Makerspace Goodness and hover over it, and goes directly into Edit with Elementor. And that way you don't have to open it to edit it and then click the Edit with Elementor button. It'll just shoot you straight over there. So let me add in, and I'll keep this layout just to show you what it would look like. and I'll do the add a new section, keep that same layout. Now let's say that I wanted to add 2 columns or 3 columns on this side, but keep this one the same. You can do that. So you can hit this plus sign and then scroll down. Oh, I will also show you, I'm making so right now I'm kind of scrolling through these and I'm making a mental note to self as to which ones to demonstrate right now. I'm going to demonstrate this tab one, and I'll show you kind of some examples of when you might want to use that. And then I will demonstrate this tab one is what you might want to use for like a libguides or like a tutorial section if you want to bucket it out into different topics. And I will also show you, this is another option if you want to format a sidebar. There's always more than one way to do stuff. This basic gallery will do the same exact thing that the image gallery did in the other one. And I will demonstrate this image carousel, which is that rotating image with the arrows, if you wanted to have like a featured image listing. Here, this one is actually a fun one. So I'm going to click and drag this into here. So now to load in the different images that you want to rotate through, you can go click on this plus sign in the corner here. And then I'll upload files, select files, and I'm going to grab a few that this is going to rotate between. So let's grab this one, this one, this one, and this one. So open it. And once these loaded through, so once these little progress bars have filled all the way up, then the create a new gallery button will become activated. And then I'll insert those into the page. And yes, I did just grab completely random images just as the demonstration. Some of them I don't 100% remember why I downloaded in the first place, but I'm sure there was a reason at some point. So I will create a new gallery, and then it'll display a little thumbnail image to make sure you grab the right ones. Go to insert gallery, and then I usually change the image size of this so that it's a little bit easier to see. And let's try medium large and large. So this is another one that you'll want to, that I recommend making sure that you grab or edit these to be about the same size. And otherwise it's just kind of going to look a little bit choppier. So as you are putting these through. And so you can also display the number of, you can also set the number of images that are displayed at one time. So if you set this over to 2, then you'll just get 2 by 2. So it might be a little bit easier to see on here. So now a few things you'll want to actually change on here when you first start getting it set up. And that is sometimes depending on the background color, the actual arrow can be hard to see. So you usually want to change the size and the color of what this arrow actually looks like so you can see it. So you would do that by going into, so you want to make sure that arrows and dots are selected, and that will make sure that the navigation arrows show up and the dots that are saying how many images are available in this little scroll section, this carousel, are in there. And then you can go to style, And then we're going to bump up the size of our arrow. So our arrow just shot up in size to the largest size it can be. Then I'll click on this little slash thing to change the color. And I'm just going to change it to just a glaringly obvious color just for demonstration. But you can use like a blue or whatever just kind of contrasting color there is to show that that arrow exists. And then the dots are pretty easy to see already, so you can just kind of leave that the same, but I just make them a little bit bigger so it's obvious that they're there. And so if you can also change the way that this image is displayed. So if you had wanted to, you can add a border to it so that it's kind of offset as to which image is which. And you can also change the spacing between the images so that they're not squished right next to each other. So this is more kind of it's more of like a stylistic thing. If you like them squished together, leave them squished. But if you want them to be a little bit separated and differentiated, you can add the spacing in the style section. And you can also trim off and round out the corners. So I'll just make this really obvious so that you can see what it's doing. It's just basically rounding this out just for visual. So you can just take off a little hair width of it if you just want to trim off, like clip off the little corner of it. But a lot of this is just kind of finicky stuff that you can kind of start playing around with. I usually round it out just like a hair width, but if I'm using a book cover, I leave it be just because people are already expecting a book cover to be a perfect rectangle. So why mess with success? And there's also different alignment options if you want these to be centered. So you can see that it's most obvious with this one where it's moving, but you can change the alignment of where these are lined up. If they're all the same size, then this won't actually make as big of a difference. All right, so the navigation and a little hair bit of that image will change, but otherwise, for the most part, I usually just leave it be. If you do want to have like a full width carousel, like if you actually have text that's printed on here that you need people to be able to read, you can make it a one size, like a one image at a time, and that will do that full width on there. And you can also get rid of this little block here if you want to take up the whole width. So instead of choosing that 2-column layout, when you do this, you can just do the 1 column and it'll fill up the whole thing. And there we go. So this, if you remember in the Gutenberg editor, it was an up-down arrow to change the order of sections. But in this one, you can change it by hovering over this little 6-pack of dots, and you can click and drag the order. And that's how you would actually make this go to the top or shift it down to the bottom or change the order of your blocks. And there's also a quick add to add a section on the top here, or you can hit on this little plus sign to add in anything. If you'd still wanted to customize your sidebar, you can hit this plus sign and then go to the text editor, just click and drag it over, and we'll get rid of that. Do a heading, hours, And then you can add in any images or any clickable images that you might want to put in here. Then you can go to update. And if you want to make any extra changes to any of these images, you can go over back into the content. So this one is kind of random in that you can turn this into a link, but it's usually just one link per, like the whole thing. Like it's when you're linking it over, it's any image you click on, it goes to the same thing. I wish they would actually customize that a little bit better, but I don't know, maybe one day. So another way that you could actually do that is by clicking into the actual image itself. And sometimes it will let you, so if you click into it and edit the image that's been loaded into the media library, at one point there was an option to make a URL. But let me see if it still lets you do that. Not on here. Let me check. I can check the media library itself and see if they still let you do it. Maybe. But no, to link it, it's usually just the one size fits all on this one for whatever weird reason. Let me see if they added anything that would make that different. If you want to get super finicky with it, you can also go into this advanced option and start playing around with like how fast it goes or exactly what the border looks like, or add like a little overlay to it. That's the mask on here. But 9 times out of 10, you probably won't need to do that too much. I'm just looking for if they added anything new on here that would let you link to a specific thing, but oh well. All right, so once that is pretty much looking the way that you had wanted it to, we'll go into a different, I'm going to add another little block here. And if you do want to delete a section, it's just this little corner up here. And then we'll add a new block that goes the full width. Add the plus sign. And then click on the plus sign to make the change inside the block. And then I'll drag over this text editor again. And I'm going to keep this random font on here just because I'm going to show you how to do that color block thing. So once you have your paragraph looking the way that you had wanted to, you can go into the style, and then you can change your text color here. So you can change it to a red or whatever you would wanted it to be. But I will keep this as this darker color just to make sure it's readable right now. And you can change the font type that's on here. So you can change the size, make it giant, make it a specific size. You can make it bold on here. Or you can make it like a narrower. And you can also shift everything over to a capital, so everyone's yelling on here. And so they're just like a mess of stuff that you can do on here. And if the font that you chose is too close together, you can kind of start playing around with how close the letters are together. And you can also change your alignment on here. So if you had wanted it centered, or if you wanted to just keep it the usual left. So now to change that color block, you can go into the advanced, and go to the background. And then the background, you can click onto the classic, which is the little paintbrush. And then you can choose a specific color. So this is where you can make it blue or any color that you'd wanted it to be. And you can also go into this coolers on here and grab a specific color. So I will grab this one just for an example. And then you can copy and paste it into here. Oh, I just saw the question pop in there. Yep, yeah, you can. You know? All right. So that is kind of the general idea of how you would do that. So this is how you can get that same exact look using Elementor instead of using the Gutenberg editor. And you can also add in different borders, or you can round out the edges. So if you had wanted to have the same background, but you wanted it to be a little bit rounded and curved, you can also do it that way. And you can see that starting to make that change on that outer side there. All right, and then, so those are kind of, you can kind of play around with these just to see what they do, but those are the most common ones that you would probably do. And the other thing that you might want to try around with is this padding. So sometimes this, you can see that this text is like right next to the edge, but a lot of times you want like a little bit of a space that goes in between here. So that is what you can do with here. So this padding, by default, it will change all of the sides equally. But if you had just wanted to shove this over a little bit instead of adding more on the top and bottom too, there's a little chain link that when you hover over it, it says link values together. If you unlink those, you can start changing just little bits of it. So you can reduce the padding on the top and reduce it on the bottom so that it's not quite as big. And just kind of play around with it till it looks the way that you would want it to. So right around there. And so the margin is if you had another item that was on top here, the margin will increase the white space or decrease the white space in between sections. So an example of that would be, we'll do the plus sign, add a new one, do another little block like that, click inside the plus sign to be able to make the change. We'll drag and drop the text editor, and then I will go to the style. I'll keep the font size at a darker color to make it readable. So I went to the text color, dragged it down to that darker color. Then I'll go into the advanced, go to background, and then I'll hit on this little classic paintbrush to change the background color. And then let's say that we had wanted a blue next to it. So now the margin will affect this little white space in between here. So we go into advanced and margin. And now you can see that this is shifting up so that they are right next to each other. Or you can make a little mini gap in between. And then you can change the padding on this one too to match what the other one looks like. And we'd unlinked this one before, so we can do that again. And the reason this isn't lining up is because the margin has been applied all the way around. So the margin shifted up this way, but it also shifted it over this way. So you can also unlink it and go to this left so that this is not shoving over in quite the right way. Basically, you want to make sure that the margin and padding are pretty much the same on both of these blocks if you actually want them to line up. And I don't actually remember the number of the padding that I put on here or the number of the margin. So you just want to copy them. But that's how you do it. All right, so that is, and that's actually another reason that some people like to use this Elementor editor more, is because you have more control over the spacing and the exact layout of what you're doing. And the Gutenberg editor, it does that little narrow set of things and then that's it. So if you want the basic layout, Gutenberg's the way to go. If you want to fine tune it and kind of play around with different layout styles, use the carousel, use the tabs that I'm going to go over in a second, then Elementor is a better way to go. All right, so the tabs that I've been talking about, I know that someone had briefly typed libguides on here, and I will put in, I'm going to go to Neely's website again. And show you a feature that I added on that one not too long ago. And if you want this on yours, I can put it on yours too. So we'll go to visit site. And fun fact, by the end of this, you'll actually know how to do it yourself too. So this digital skills section that's added on here, these are separated out by topic and category. So this is just a drop-down menu that had been set up. When you click on job seekers, it'll open up the little tab menu that goes by topic. So these are the different topics that people commonly ask for. When you click open a topic, it gives a set of resources to go to learn how to do it. So, and these resources all came from digital skill clusters. So this is something that I scraped together. I'm not gonna lie, it took me a minute, but I put together these, and these just go by topic and then by category. And these are just kind of quick links that you can use for library staff or for direct patron access to be able to start working through different categories. So I will share this. I'm still adding out different topics, but so I'll copy this link. Done. Digital skill clusters. So you can share this with library staff. You can put it up on your website. You can do, if you have resources you would recommend adding to it, let me know and I can get them added. And so basically what I did was, once this was all together, I copy and pasted the links that I had put together from here and popped them in here. And then they're all just separated out by category. And so there's one for job seekers, there's one for buying and selling stuff online, parenting and tech, etc., etc. And so the way that I did this, I will show you now. So this is the tab function in Elementor. I'll go open up Elementor, and I'm going to remove all of this so that we don't have to scroll too far to see what we're working with. And I'm going to remove all of these sections so that there's not a ton of stuff on here. Then I'll add a new section. That's going to take up the full width. Then click on this plus sign and then go to these little menu options on the side. Then scroll down to that tab function. And there it is. So the tab, the little file folder icon, then I will click and drag it into the right spot. So by default, those little tab categories show up across the top. But if you switch this position from horizontal to vertical, they'll change to the side. And then they actually made this pretty easy. So this tab 1, you click over to the left side to be able to change the topic. And I'm going to open up this site on my screen and I'm just going to duplicate it. So tab 1 was, so I click into it, change the title, starting an online business, and then copy, and I'll go to this, starting an online business, how to start a small business, copy, and paste. And then I will turn this into a list of links. There. So I just highlighted it, hit the bullet, and then I'll get rid of these little empty bullets that are in the middle. This where it's just the space that's between here and there. For whatever weird reason, this is making me hit the backspace to put this on the same line. And then for tab 2, you just click where it says tab 2. You can click on this to collapse that little accordion thing. Click on tab 2, type in your new topic. Buy on Etsy. And then I'll go to my digital skill clusters and buying and selling, buy, sell crafts on Etsy, copy, and paste. Now I'll get rid of those empty lines that are in between here. Highlight the whole thing and hit the bulleted list to turn it into a bulleted list. Oh, I missed the top 2. Whoops. Bulleted list. Clear up a little empty line, and there it is. And then to add a new one, you can click this to collapse a little accordion, click on add an item, and now that'll add a new tab on here. And you can say things on eBay. And then I'll just do this last one so you get the idea. Buying and selling used goods on eBay. Copy it and paste it. Then I'm going to clear out those little lines because we don't need that extra stuff. Highlight and bulleted list. And so this is just an example of how you can kind of categorize stuff out. You can put any, if you can put like a libguides in here. You can put pretty much if there's information or resources you need to put on here, go to town. This is also a great option if you are looking for a place to put tutorials, or if you're looking for a place to feature different makerspace topics. So if you want to say we have robots, we've got sewing machine, we've got whatever, then you can have like a little topic that says sewing machine. Then you can have some info about the machine you have available and some different activity options that people can do. So you can do this for pretty much anything. If it's a topic, it works. And you can also embed PDFs in here too. So if you had policies or anything like that, then this is a good place to put them. So I'll close this and you can just add as much stuff as you want to. If you don't like this blue color or this green color, you can also change that. So you can do that by going into the style. Anytime you want to change a color, a font, or anything, it's always in style. So you can click on the color. So if you want to change that blue over to you can make it anything. You can just make it a random orange. Anything that's kind of more reader friendly. And then, so the active color is going to be the color of what shows up when you click on a thing. So this is the active menu. So that is the active color. And if you want to make that even just a darker green, you can do that just so it's easier for people to read. And then you can also mess around with the font that's on here. So you can make this bigger, you can make it smaller. That's maybe a little bit too giant. Let's just go with a even 20. To me, that's a little bit too thick of a font, so I'd probably just back it down a little bit. And yeah, that's probably pretty good. And then you can click this to close it. And if this is a little bit too light of a gray font for people to read, you can click on the content color and then switch it down to a darker color so people can read it more easily. There. And you can also mess around with the typography, with the font size and everything on this one too. All right, so let me go to, and the navigation width is just how wide that little block is on the side. So if you did, for whatever reason, want everything to show up on one line, you can make this wide enough that it'll work on there. So if you do want to see what this will look like, I just saw the picture in chat. You wanted to know what it'll look like on mobile. So there is a responsive mode that's in Elementor. So if you click this responsive mode, it'll show you what it looks like on mobile, tablet, and desktop. So this is what it looks like on mobile. It will stack it so that your menu options and category options are on top. And then you click through and the content shows down below. So it'll accordion out based on what you click on. And tablet is basically a squished version of desktop. All right, so, and you can kind of fiddle around with those different settings and how it'll look on each different device. But once you've got it looking the way that you want, you can hit this update button. And you can also do a direct preview, which works just like any other preview. If you want to, if you made a whole bunch of changes and you realize you didn't really want to make those changes, there is a history on here. So you can back it back over to about 20 edits, 30 edits, 40 edits before, and undo the hot mess that you just accidentally did. I won't lie, I've used that a few times. All right, so I showed that one. Let me go into this plus sign. We'll add in this full width again, hit the plus sign up here to add something into our new section. And the other thing that I was going to walk through is, let me see if I can find it again. So just as a heads up, there is a section in here that is listed as the Pro version. We do not have the Pro version through Nebraska Libraries on the web. 9 times out of 10, like most things that you would want to do is already available in here, or there's another way to do it. So I just never got the Pro version. But we'll go down to this general. Anything in the general is available and you are able to use it. So if you do want kind of a, I don't know if you've ever seen like the card function. So the card function has like a little image cap on top, and then it has some text or a button or something like that down at the bottom. So there is a way that you can do that. And I actually should have used a multi-column layout for that. So I'll hit this plus sign, add the 3-column layout, and we're going to put 3 little sections of information in here. So I'll put the plus sign. I'm going to go down to that image box. So now I'll grab a random image. Anytime there's an image in here, you just go over here to actually add your image. Click over on the left-hand side. We'll upload. Actually, I bet I can grab one that I just loaded into the media library already. We'll grab this little journal. Insert media. And I'll go to a larger size. The heading is it doesn't really matter what the text is. You can put in a little description of what it is, when it is, where it is, why it is, and put that info in here. And I'm going to go over to this style section. And you can start playing around with how far apart this little image is from the text. So you can squish it down to pretty much nothing. You can change the width of what that block looks like. So you can make it narrower or wider depending on how big you want that image. So I actually like a really big image on this. So I usually just do like the whole thing. Maybe that's just me. And you can also you can round it out, just like anytime you see border radius, it'll do that little clip off to round off the edges. And you can also make this so that when you hover your mouse over it, it'll do different things. So if you do the pulse grow, now it'll pulse and grow. That is messing with my mind right now, so I'm going to turn that off. But you can also just make it grow. And so that's kind of like it's just kind of like pinpointing that you are definitely interacting with that object and that you're interacting with the object that you meant to interact with. So you might see this animation on a lot of different websites that you've gone to just to like feature content or show it. I am never going to use that pulse grow again because that should come with like a seizure warning or something. But there's like a bunch of different things that you can do. And oh, that's a new one. I might use that for something, but maybe. Probably the grow and the shrink are the 2 most common that I've seen. And the content, again, you can change if you want this to be a little easier to read, you can make that a little bit darker or bolder of a color. And you can also, anytime you see a color, if there is a hex color down here, you can grab that from coolers if you want to specify your colors. And I would actually, I don't know why they defaulted it to this like gray color, because to me that should be a lot darker to be able to read better. So I just usually manually change that every time. And let me go back in here and to advanced and border. So you can also, sometimes you'll see on other websites that there might be a border block around the whole thing. So you can do that just to like block off your different content. And you can change the width of your border. Usually about a 1 or 2 does the trick. And you can change the color of the border if you don't want it to be like that intense black color. So you can kind of mellow it out a little bit or change out the how it'll look. Maybe a nice gray. And then you can do this exact same thing, and you can make 3 of these right next to each other. So hit this plus sign, go to the image box, drag it over. Oh, I didn't get it quite in there. So I'm actually aiming to make sure that this little blue rectangle pops in where I want it to pop in, and that's how I know that it's going in the right spot. And now I'll just duplicate all these same settings right over here. Let me see, edit. I was hoping that they were going to give me a copy on here so that I can just duplicate this and put it over here, but I don't see that. It either doesn't exist or I just haven't found it yet. If you find a copy paste to duplicate a block, let me know. But so you can change this out, click the image. I won't go through the full thing on here, but just to give you a visual of what it'll look like. And this time I will grab Oculus Girl, insert media, go into our style, change the width to 100. And this is where that image sizing comes into play, because ideally you would want these to have like a solid row across so that these are all the same height and these images are all the same height. Sometimes the offset looks pretty good depending on what you're actually doing, but I'm just a weirdo that likes everything spaced out that way. And so with that, you can make sure that you're doing that just by, I'm going to turn this off. Content, image, come on, none. None. So you can do this just by checking the pixel size of your images. And if you make sure that when you're editing it or when you're downloading it, all of your images are the same pixel size, then you're good to go. All right, so you get kind of the idea of how that'll work. Are there any questions about some of the new features like this that I just went over? And I will sip my tea while I wait and see if anything pops into the chat. All right, so nothing popped in yet, but I am going to sift through my blocks and make sure that if there is anything else that I definitely wanted to cover right now. So like a lot of times you will probably want to embed a video somewhere on your page, either as a tutorial or as a like a informational video, library tours or things like that. There is an embeddable video block. This is available in Elementor, but it's also in Gutenberg Editor. You can do it in either one. I usually do it in Elementor just because there is more, you can have better control over your settings, and you can also have control over whether or not people are able to play it within the website. And you can also control when the video actually starts playing. So if you are doing makerspace tutorials and the tutorial maker just has like they're covering a different topic for the first half of the video, but the actual tool you're using doesn't show up until like the 20-minute mark, you can actually set this to start playing that video at exactly 20 minutes and 30 seconds so that you don't have to specify it and people don't have to fiddle around with the slider to get to the right spot. And you can also, if the tutorial is only covering that for about like 5 minutes, you can also end it at a specific time too. So that's mostly why I like to use this Elementor for videos instead of the other one. But for all I know, they already added that feature in the Gutenberg editor, and I just haven't found it because I'm used to using Elementor. Stuff changes. And this one is pretty easy because you can just copy and paste the YouTube link and pop it in here. And you can also fiddle around with the size of this. So if you wanted to shrink it, or 16:9 is like the default setting that works on most computers. So I usually just leave it at that. All right, so let me close this. And another thing that you will probably use pretty often is this button. So the button, let me drag it up here. So the button is going to come in handy if you've ever seen like the Learn More button or the register or click for more info. That is what this button will do. So there are default colors that are set on here. This is like your default standard button when you add it. You can send it over to different links, URLs. You can send it to a different page in your own website. And you can send it to a contact form if you had wanted to. So if you use WP Forms to make a registration form, you can use the button to link over to the form if you had wanted to. And you can also make a button to, if you had that print and download this form, or print and bring this form into the library, you can use a button to download the form. So you can, instead of saying click here, you just change the text on the left-hand side and say download. And then you can change your color. You can go and you can change the size of the font or the size of the button. So this is the size of the button itself if you want it to be in your face. And then you can also change the size. You can add an icon on here if you'd wanted to. So the icon would be, sometimes you see like a little picture of a pen for edit, or a little picture of a light bulb for ideas or brainstorming. You can upload a little icon on here, or you can choose from an icon library that's pre-built in here. Download is usually a downward arrow. That's kind of like the default thing that says you're downloading. So download and insert. So now you have download with a little icon. And you can change whether the icon shows up before or after your phrasing. And you can also shift how far away this icon is from the actual text. So you can move it over or shift it closer. And to change the color, again, that's in the style. You can click on the color and go to maybe this blurple color. And you can also add in borders or just keep it that same color. And you can change the color of the border if you want to offset that. Usually I just leave it be and just kind of leave it like this. And you can also change out the padding so that you have more like little blue space on the side here. Basically, if you can think about it, you can customize it. And you can change the font, you can change pretty much anything. You can change the color. A lot of times when you hover over a button, it'll change color. So these are the normal settings, like what the button will just look like when you're not anywhere near it with your mouse. But when you hover over it, you can also change the color so that it goes to, we'll just make a completely different color just so it's obvious. And they'll change the text color to, oh here, I'll make a lighter color and change the text color. So now when you hover over it, it changes so that people know that they're interacting with the right thing. And most forms you deal with will pretty much have this option so that you know you're interacting with that button. And this one also has the animation option. Grow is a more popular one for buttons if you are looking for animations. And then this radius again will just kind of shave off a little bit of the side. So in this case, it'll actually only shave off a little bit of the side when you hover over it. And it'll, oh, actually, there's a little bar section here. So this section above the bar will be affecting the hover, but below the bar, the border type affects both hover and normal. Good to know. So mess of stuff. All right, so we are at 3:37. I want to make sure that I cover what I plan to cover. I probably could just sit here for like 4 hours and just talk about different features that you could add to your website. And well, I would think that's kind of fun. You probably also want to learn other stuff about this. So the other thing that I had planned to cover is we just went over that brainstorming session of what you can actually add to your website. So the other exercise I usually recommend doing is to make sure that you're customizing your website to suit different types of audiences. So the next exercise we're going to go through is I'm going to pull up this little chart and I'm going to close this here, minimize this, move this over, and go in here. So these were the topic listings that we had come together to figure out what we wanted. But now we want to find out if parents come to our website, what are they looking to see? If library advocates go to the website, what are they looking to see? And are we going to make sure that the library website has something for all the major groups that are going to be trying to find information on our website? So the first thing is to brainstorm who's actually looking at the website and why. And I will share the link to this document just because it probably got buried a little bit. So I'll share it, copy the link. And this is going to make sure that we're actually covering what we should be covering with the website. And if you scroll down to page 5 of this document, the who is looking at your website and why, this is where we're at. So on the left-hand side here, you can put target audience and we'll say parents. And the who already uses it, who does it, is you get a lot of use out. They use it a lot already. We want to use that. We want them to use it more, or they never use it at all. So you can put that in, and hours, activities, new books, and I mean, they'll probably want some stuff for themselves too. So that is a kind of an example, and we'll say that we want them to use it more. So you can start filling in this table of the who is looking at your website and why for the different target demographics you're trying to reach and why they would be going to your website. And again, this is on page 5 out of 7 if you're looking for it. If you're not able to get into this page for any reason, you can also put your answer into the chat and I will type it in for you. And if you don't know how much people are using your website right now, you can just leave that blank. Our main thing is the target audience and why they would go to the website, what they're looking for. And tourists is actually a pretty popular target audience. A lot of times they'd come in for printing things, checking out hours, or finding local history. Or they're bored and want a book in the hotel room. They might want to know the policies for tourists and visitors checking out materials. All right, so we've got parents, researchers, the everyday patron, then people who are new to town, then some kids and teens. And one thing that I will add in here is library advocates, city council. So the people who determine how much funding the library gets and supporters of the library. So they may need to and then let's see who else is on here. Then depending on the community, there might be the homeless population too. And they're looking for and students. So, and students can be pretty much all ages, K through 12, college, returning to school. They might be looking for school research projects or research databases. Books, digital skill resources. A lot of times students will be assigned to make a video or a PowerPoint for a project, and they might be looking for resources to make a video or resources to edit or record audio because they might not have the tools and equipment at home. They might try to come into the library to try to use it. And let's see here. There's also let me look at some other sheets of what came up in previous sessions too. Yeah, I'm scrolling. Yeah, those are the biggest categories. In the past, vendors came up. So people that are trying to sell new services or asking you to add books or resources to the library. And then volunteers came up. So people who want to volunteers and donors. And they are looking for current projects, areas of growth, and wish lists and donation policies. Job seekers are looking for tutorials, career paths, General resources. So now the question is, now that there is a list of who is actually looking at the website, we can go up here and start looking at the stuff we had planned to put on the website. And does this list of stuff actually cover everything that people want? So this was like the initial brainstorming burst about what actually needs to go on there. And now you can go back and double check and make sure that there's something for everyone. All right, so with the parents, they're looking for hours, activities, new books, and maybe some job skill resources. Some are actually looking for homeschool resources and activities to do. So now we can go back up and add this. So hours and contact us. And so the events and programming, the question is, do you want to have a calendar of events, or do you want to have a description of what those events are? So you can add calendar, event, description, page, offerings page, or services and offerings. And for the classes and trainings, do you want a all online resource page, in-person training page, and partner organization page? And in some cases, these might be all on one page, but separated out into different categories or different sections. Like you might have a classes and training page, and then the first section might be the in-person classes, and then you might have an online resources class section, and then links over to partner organizations like the American Job Center or Goodwill, or somewhere that does job seeker assistance, or someone who helps with the resume and cover letter, and finding out which resources are available and making sure that they're laid out on your website so people know that they exist. And so for the events and programming, the next thing I will go over is the calendar. So now we're back at our main dashboard where we can make our changes. And there are two calendars that are on WordPress. One calendar is no longer in use after some of the updates that went on. The person who made the calendar is no longer updating it. So if you do currently use this manage calendar with the gear icon toward the bottom, that is not, it's no longer going to be used. I have to get rid of it probably within the next, I'd say, few months. On a lot of themes, this is not even displaying as a calendar anymore. It might be displaying as just a series of empty boxes on the screen. So if you already ran into that problem, that's why they're no longer updating it. So we are now using the events manager, and you'll know that you have the right one because it looks like a little calendar in the shape of a shield. So you can go to events, and then if you click on events, it'll display a table with all the events you currently have loaded on. The add event will let you add a single event, and recurring events is if you have like a story hour or something that happens every week, every month, every other week, or just something that happens all the time. And so I'll go over how to add a single event. And this will just take a second to load in here. So it'll open up this little form in here. I'm going to close out these little icons from other plugins, the little notifications that stuff's coming up. And I'm going to first add in a title. Actually, this is a one-time event, so that actually wouldn't work very well for story hour. That's usually recurring. I'll put in robotics, because that might be something that you do once in a blue moon or once a month or something. And then you would put in a little description. Oh God, that candle smells so good. Then you can put in the date that it's going to be appearing in this upper right corner. And you can say maybe it's in June on the 25th. And it's a one-day event, so you just say it's from the 25th to the 25th. You can say that it is starting at, oh, definitely would not be 5 in the morning. Maybe 6 p.m. And then you would put in your time zone. I'm used to Central, but I think you are Mountain. For whatever weird reason, this does not let you type in like Mountain time. It goes by the nearest city. So I think that would probably be Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it makes you type in the city instead of the mountain. And then you can go down toward the bottom here and you can type in a location name. I usually just leave this blank if all the events are located at the library anyway. But if you do have partner organizations or you work with different places around the community to set locations, you might want to say it's at the community center, it's at the church, it's at the library if you rotate through them. But if it's just all the library all the time, I wouldn't worry about it. Just say no location. If you are asking people to register for an event or register to sign up, you can enable registration on the event. It'll ask you to set if you do have a maker activity that costs like $2 or $5 for a kit, you can set a price on here. But like a lot of times it's just going to be free. If you do have a cap on the registration, you can put in the available spaces and say that there are 20 or 30 spaces, so 20 spaces. And you can have an opening and closing date for when this registration is available. So if you want to make it available starting today, and you can say 12 a.m., and then you can say that you need to be registered by June 10th to be able to, and you can say maybe at like 11:45 p.m. And if it is, so a lot of times I just say that it's available for anyone to sign up because a lot of people aren't going to want to set up a login to be able to register. And you can kind of set this in depending on if there's like a max number of people who can sign up, or if there is just as many people as want to sign up can sign up, then you don't even really need to worry about this. If you want to put in a brief description of what the ticketing is going to look like or like what it's all about, you can put it in here. And I would usually uncheck the allow comments because you allow comments will let people comment on that specific event. But unless you are monitoring that page to know that a comment showed up, you would just have a random question on there that would be displayed for everyone to see that just you may never have known it existed, so you wouldn't answer it. And then you would just have angry people saying, why didn't you answer my question? So I just usually turn allow comments off, and it'll also prevent spam from popping in. So unless you want some random person in India popping in and saying, buy my shoe brand from shoeman.in, then you just want to turn that off. And then you can go up and waiting for this to load here. You can also add event categories. So event categories are helpful if you are using WordPress to run your like end of year reporting or something like that. So a lot of times you have to say how many events you did, who showed up, and what kind of or who was served during those events. You can use these categories to say kids event and then add new event category. And then you can add adult or story hour, or if you have specific types of events that happen a lot, then you can add in those event categories. And then at the end of the year, you can look at a table of events that happened and be able to know there were 20 kids events that happened, and or however many actually happened based on what you advertised on your event calendar. And so we're going to mark this as a kids event. And then publish it. And you don't need to have booking on here. Booking is optional, just if you happen to want to use it that way. Some people don't like the booking option that's baked into the events calendar. And if you don't like the booking option, you can also embed a form into this. So you can like add the WP form into this. So this is the event registration that we had put together earlier in the session, and you can add this, and there's that embed code. So it just kind of pops it in there. And that will show up embedded in the description when you put the event onto your page. In this case, we'd actually want the description on top and then the form. And then you can update the changes. So let me show you what that would look like on the website. So I'll go to site, visit site, open link in new tab. So I do recommend having a navigation bar that's only one line long. So the only reason this is multiple lines long is because I have a little checkbox that's checked in my WordPress that says add all new pages to my navigation. And so when I added Makerspace Goodness and these random test pages, it automatically got popped in here. But normally it would just be this one single row that just keeps it neater. So the events it's defaulted to be put into the events page, but you can put the events calendar on any page that you'd like. So the events here is Robotics 101. When you click on it, it's taking a minute to load just because I have this dashboard open too. But now the description and the sign up form is embedded right in there. So some people, when they have like a custom registration form, they just prefer to have their own fields in instead of using the booking. So this is what your custom form looks like that you put together in WP Forms. And this is what the booking looks like. So if someone has 2 kids, then you'd be able to put 2 kids and then register for story hour. and then send your booking. And so for the booking registration, you can customize the notification that people get. And you can also get confirmation sent over to your email address, but you also just have more control over the fields that are available if you use the form option instead of the booking option. The benefit to the booking is that it tracks how many people signed up, and this does not. So it's really up to you. There are pros and cons. And so let me go back into this event listing here. So the events on here, you can put it as a calendar, like the traditional calendar with the squares and boxes, or I usually leave it as an event listing on here because it's easier to read a lot of the times. So on a calendar, when you switch it over to a mobile or a tablet view, sometimes that will squish it in so that the boxes get incredibly tiny, and it can be harder to tap open that specific thing. Like it's harder to tap open Robotics 101 to learn more about it. But when it's as a list, it's a lot easier to navigate through and just click it open to learn more about it. And this events in the widget section down on the side here is also another way to display what's coming up soon. So this is kind of baked into WordPress if you are using the widgets. If you're using Elementor to display your sidebar instead of using widgets, there is a baked in events widget that is available through Elementor as well. So where there's a will, there's a way. I will show how to do the recurring events, and then I'll show how this event section got into widgets. So I'll go back into the main dashboard here. I'll close that preview. And now back in the events with the shield icon, we'll go into recurring events. And recurring events uses a really similar form option to what was used to add this single event. The major difference is the setting you'll use to say how often it's going to happen. All right, so this is an example that I put in a previous session. So I'm going to go to add recurring event across the top. And then the new form will load, and I'll put in the title. So the title, this will be a good one to use for story hour. So now we can say that this event is going to start at not 2:30 in the morning. We'll scroll down to maybe 1 in the afternoon, and it ends at 2. The time zone, we're going back to Denver. And so the story hour, let's say that it is going on weekly. It happens every 1 week, so every week on Tuesday. And the recurrences span from today through the dawn of time. So we can just say 2030. And you can edit this date or change it if you happen to need to change the date that this is happening or the time. You can just open up that table of events, go to edit, and change what's in here. So this is going to be happening once a week, every Tuesday from today through 2030. And the event spans if you leave it as 0, it's just going to be a 1-day event. But if you have something that happens for a weekend, like if you have a Girl Scout troop that's going to be doing a camping trip for the weekend, you can say that the event spans 2 days, and that'll be a weekend trip. And it'll have the same location option. You can leave it as no location if it's always at the library, or you can specify your library address just by going to physical location and putting in your address info. You can enable registration or not, depending on if you want to use that form or you're just letting people know that the event is going on and anyone can show up if they like. And I'll uncheck the box that says allow comments so we don't get a bunch of spam or random people asking questions when we don't know that the thing exists. And then I'll go back up and I'll check the box that says which category it's going on. And this is actually it's similar to the way pages and posts look, is that if you have an event, but you don't want to market it right now, you can also, in this publish section, you can go to publish immediately, go to edit, and then you can change the date and time that it's going to be made available. And that publish button will turn into schedule. But in this case, we do want to publish it immediately. So we're just going to publish. I will sip my tea while this is loading. You know, peppermint tea while I'm smelling a chocolate candle is actually really good. I should do that more. All right, so now this is still saving. So you can see that the little 1 showed up because the booking showed up from when I filled out that form during the demonstration earlier. So now it'll let you know that you just did a recurring event and that it's going to show up a bunch of times. So now when we go back into our events, I think I can. There we go. So now we have story hour. This is the library board meeting that I had in there before. And now story hour is showing up once a week. And library board is showing up the first Wednesday of the month. So if you want to double check and make sure that you entered the information in correctly, then you can always go to this events table and make sure that it says the first Wednesday of the month or Tuesday every week, and you'll be able to verify it that way. All right, so now I'm going to click open into this booking so that you can see what the booking option would look like on the tail end of it. So this is just a listing of the bookings that have been made, and then the spaces that are available. And then you would also need to go in and approve this booking. So once you click on approve in this pending recent bookings, click approve. And now it'll take off those spaces on there. And I had put in my email, so I just got a little ping in my ear that says that my email was sent. And on my computer, it says WordPress booking confirmed as a verification email. All right, so I am going to open up settings. So the settings are going to be how and where the event calendar is displayed. And for some reason, this seems like it's taking longer to load, but I'll take it. All right, so in the pages section, when you go into the event pages, you can choose how you're going to display the calendar. Right now it is as a post. You can also switch it over to a page and it'll actually describe what it's doing. If you choose pages, then events will be shown using your theme default page template. And a lot of times it's fine just to leave the default on this one. And you can also change this is where you would change which page your events is displayed on. By default, it'll go to this events page, but if you want your page to say calendar instead of events, you can create a blank page called calendar, publish it, and then go into your events, settings, event list, and then go to this event page and choose calendar. So if I choose a different page, now it's going to display a calendar on the kids and teens, or you can just switch it to the default events page. And there's also by default, there is a search option on the event listing. I usually turn that off just because unless you have like a whole ton of different events that people might want to search for, it just kind of is a box that's there. So I just turned it off just to clean up the page a little bit. And so if you want to switch it over so that your calendar is displayed as an actual calendar instead of a list, you in this event list option, you can say display calendar and events page and choose yes. And this will display a full-size calendar instead of that list. All right, so those are probably the more common ones. The common settings that you'll use is switching between the list and the calendar and choosing where your events page is going to show up. And so when you make changes to this, you just want to make sure that you save all the changes that you had made. Otherwise, nothing's going to take effect. And you can also choose a page to display your categories, and this would be in the event categories section. And then people will be able to click through your different available categories and say, show me everything that you have for kids, show me everything you have for adults, show me everything you have for older adults, and show me everything you have for job seekers. And you can organize it out based on what people are looking for. And then you can create this categories page and display it on either your events page or you can put the categories page on a kids and teens page. So people can say, show me what you have for kids. And then people will be able to click right over to what you've got available. And those are probably the biggest ones. There's always other stuff you can do on here, but those are the most common. And you can also customize your bookings on here. So to an extent, you can change what people will see and what people are able to do with their booking. But again, the more flexible option is just using that form because you'll have a lot better customization. This will mostly just let you customize the message that people get once they cancel or make a booking. Or if someone tries to make a booking but all the slots are full, this will say that we're not taking bookings right now, or the sign up period for this is closed or something like that. So just something to play around with. All right, so the other thing that I was going to go over is your homepage settings. So this was the event calendar, but if you also want to feature different events on your homepage and kind of show what's going on, there's a variety of different ways that you can do that. So one option is to use the presentation page settings through your theme. So this is the Nirvana theme. Any theme that you choose, the additional settings are going to be in this appearance block with the little paintbrush icon. So you can go over to appearance, and in this case, it says Nirvana settings, but you might say like, it'll say your theme and settings. I'm waiting for Nirvana settings to load. Whenever something is loading, you'll see this little dot up here bouncing back and forth. That's how you'll know that the computer is thinking about it. It just hasn't done it yet. And I will sip my tea. Come on, WordPress. I must have something else open or running right now that's taking up. Oh, I have a remote access view open. That's what's taking up a lot of it. I'll close that. I was remoting into another computer that was in a different location, so that's probably what was slowing it down. There we go. So a lot of the themes have now switched over to this style of settings. So it'll let you change the actual layout. Like, do you actually want a sidebar, or do you want to switch it over to so there's no sidebar at all? Do you want to make it so that your page is a little bit wider on the screen? Do you want your sidebar to be a little wider than the standard? And there's just kind of a mess of stuff that you can change on here. I recommend keeping it so that responsiveness is always enabled. Otherwise, you might get kind of a hot mess when people switch between a desktop, tablet, and smartphone. And so the presentation page is why we're in here right now. So if you disable the presentation page, you will get a listing, your blog postings on your homepage by default. And that's not a bad thing. If you use a blog, then by all means put your blog postings on the front homepage, and that'll let people know what's coming up. You can put in a little blurb or an image for what's happening, if there are any events around town, if you have new materials or just stuff that's coming up. If you know that you are not going to have a whole super ton of time to be able to update a blog, and you just want to make a homepage that you can update maybe once a month or once a week or once in a blue moon, then you'll want to use either a presentation page or a static page. A presentation page, the settings will appear in appearance and your theme settings, and anything that you're able to update will be available in this menu. So you can embed a blog inside of a presentation page, or you can disable it. I turned it off so that none of the posts will actually show up on here. But there is one of those giant rotating sliders. So let me show you what this looks like right now. So this is your presentation page. So this is the header image. This is the navigation menu with all of your pages. And again, I would make sure that this is one row and all of your random stuff doesn't show up down here. You can turn it into a drop-down menu to kind of organize and neaten things up. But this is that rotating slider. So this is kind of the image that would show up and kind of draws attention to that part of the screen. Then here are those like some arrow buttons. And then this is a title that would pop up, a little description of what it's all about. And then there is a read more button. So by default, Nirvana put in some of these blurred out images just to as like a default. And there are 4 different options right now that you can scroll through to feature different things. And then when you scroll down, I have the library services, and then these are some hover over options so that when you hover over something, it'll give you a little description of what it is. And there are different options so that you can make these just permanently listed on here instead of only appearing when you hover over it. And you can add in more different sections down here if you'd wanted to. So when you go to this Nirvana settings, the way that you would change those slides that are available in there, you can change the way the slider arrows are working so that you can make them visible all the time. And you can also change your font sizes and play around with that. And so the slide content is where the image and text is actually stored. So if you click open slide 1, you can click on here to change out that image, and then you can change the title and then change the little description. And this link here is where people get routed to if they click that read more button. If you don't want that button to say read more, you can change it to learn more or pretty much anything you want to. And you can make those changes on each one of these different slides. And so the columns that are down below, they are in the widget columns. So in order to make changes to those widgets, you would go into appearance and widgets and load in all of your information there. And it's pretty easy to get to that one because you just click it open and it sends you over there. And you can also, instead of making it 3 images across, you can make it a 2x2. And instead of making it animated, you can make it a static text that goes over on top of the image, or you can make it static text that appears right below the image. So if you are trying to put text over like a really bold color and it's harder to read, you might want to default it so that the text shows up underneath it. And so now these text areas down here, I deleted everything out of here so that nothing shows up. But if you add more stuff on here and then add in and I'll save this. And then I'll go back into the site here. I'm waiting for this to stop bouncing back and forth so that I know it's done loading. And I'm going to reload this. And then I'll scroll all the way down to the bottom. And now that text is showing up underneath instead of on top, so that it might be easier to read for some stuff. And this is that text area that I just added in, the new reads, and this is what's coming up next. But if you clear that out, this will get removed. So if you are not currently using Nirvana and you want to start using Nirvana, you can change your theme by going into appearance and themes. So these are the themes that are currently available. Some of these are not as recommended because they haven't been updated in a really long time, but I keep them on there because there are a few libraries that are still using it that haven't had a chance to switch over yet. Like this 20-ton Weaver, it's called 2010 for a reason. And it's just because it just hasn't been, like the developer hasn't updated it very recently. And when the developer hasn't updated it, then some of the new features like the Elementor plugin don't really play nicely with it all the time. So the themes like Nirvana and Astra and Atahualpa and Catchbox and Boda, Dara, and Hestra. Those are some of the newer ones. Panoramic, Ocean WP, those are newer. Parabola is a newer one. And (2014) no, 2015 is the newer one. And so if you want to switch over to a different one, then you can find the theme that you're looking for, and you can first live preview it. When you click on live preview, it will not yet change it over. It will give you an idea of what that would look like with your current content. And so this will also give you an idea of the things that Astra or your chosen theme will let you actually change. And if it will let you change the things you want to change, then by all means, switch over to it. And this is an idea of what this theme would look like with your current information. So if you want your title to be right next to your menu like that, then you can use that one. Or you can switch over to using you can change out the design so that, and find out how this theme will actually let you change out the appearance. And once you find a theme that you actually want to use and you have it looking somewhat the way that you want it to look, you can hit activate and publish, and then your whole theme will switch over to this new one. And I'm not going to activate this one. I'll just do OK. And if you don't hit activate and publish, then nothing will change on your site. You can try out other themes and just see what other stuff would look like. So you can see that Nirvana is still active on this site and it still looks the way that we had set it up before. But if you had wanted to try out like Boda or something, you can do that live preview and it'll just run through that same process until you find the one that you want. And a lot of times the theme preview, there will usually be additional settings once you actually have the theme active. And the biggest things to look out for are the way this header looks, because it will be a little bit more difficult to customize a header than it will be to customize everything down here. Because if you don't like your sidebar, you can just as easily go into Elementor and use Elementor to design your sidebar instead of using the default on here. So this isn't like a make it or break it. But if you do like to use the widget section of your website, you want to make sure that you like the coloring and spacing and font on here, because if you don't customize it, the theme choice is pretty much what you're using. So the other question you might have is, how can I customize the sidebar using widgets instead of Elementor? Because my website already uses widgets, and why not keep doing it? So if you are a widget user, you can go into Appearance and Widgets to change out your sidebar. So now this custom sidebars, they are no longer supporting it just because WordPress made enough updates that it's no longer necessary. Custom sidebar used to let you customize sidebars. It lets you put it in more different spaces than it would have been already. But now themes let you put it in pretty much any spot anyway. So custom sidebars is kind of, the developers no longer supporting it because WordPress can already do it now. But the theme sidebars is where you want to look. So the right sidebar is, you can see these little these little blocks on here are what is currently available on the side. So let me give you an idea of what that looks like on the actual website. So you have the event block that I had talked about before, and then you have hours in contact, the local resources. I had put events in twice just because I've done a demonstration for it before. And these are some of those clickable images that will just let you click over to a catalog, overdrive, or anything that you happen to want to try. So let me go into widgets. So this is the events section. So I am going to delete this and then I'll show you how to add it in. And I'll delete this one down here too, because you don't need to. So on this left-hand side is all the available widgets that you can use for your site. So I'm going to scroll down here until I find events. So this will display a list of events on Events Manager. There's a little description of it to remind you of what it is and what it does. Then you click and drag it just the same way that you did with the blocks in Elementor. And now this title events is going to be what shows up, like the physical label on the event, but you can also say calendar if you have a preference for the phrase calendar. And you can also control the number of events that show up in that listing. It's defaulted to 5, but if you have 3 recurring events and you don't want to show the same event over and over again, you can switch it over to 3 events. And you generally want it to be future events because a lot of times people want to know what's coming up. They don't care what just happened because they can't go to it. And you can also default it to say, tell people what's going on this month or tell people what's coming up in June. And I default it to say order by the start date so that you get the most recent stuff first, and then hit save. And then I will reload this page. And now on top, it says calendar and the 3 upcoming events. And so let me click this closed. If you click any one of these, it will either open the menu or close it. And there's an hour and contact information. This is a text block. And this shows up pretty much the exact same way that the calendar block showed up. I went over to the left-hand side to the available widgets, find the text block, click and drag it over. Go here, and then you put in the hours. And then you put in the hours that you're actually open. And then you can save it. And this one actually has the hours that you're actually open. That was just like a quick demo. And if you decide that you don't actually want a block that you had just added in here, you can click it open and hit this delete button in the bottom left. And these clickable images that are down here, there is the image block. You click and drag the image. And so you can decide to add a title if you want to, but let me click open this page. So this overdrive, the title is already in the image. So if I had added a title, it would say overdrive and then overdrive. So if you leave the title blank, it just won't add any title in that image. And you can click on add image. And I will grab let's grab like a Nebraska axis just because I don't think I put that on there yet. There. If I did, I did, but I don't think I did. So Nebraska Access, let me add to widget. And you can also tell it where to link over to when people click on it. So let me go to Nebraska Access. I always type 2 A's in there and it's only one, but it's easy enough to fix. Save it. Oh, I actually just want that. And now we'll reload. Oh, it must not have saved yet. No, it did. Why are you not showing up? It's showing up as nothing. Well, let me see here. Hit save. Reload. Let me close it and I'll reopen it and just see if that does it. Open up a page. What in the world? Let me go back to edit this. And I'm going to go back into the widgets and make sure that that actually loaded and saved. Widgets. And right sidebar. Image. Oh, it didn't actually load the image. Let me try it again. I'll click on Nebraska Access, add to widget, save it. And I'll try it again. Go back into for kids and teens. I mean, it'll show up in any one of these pages. I just happened to click on that. There it is. That, I'm just going to call that a random fluke. It's there now. And click through. So we have a few minutes left. I will do a quick demo of GIMP and then we will call it a day. So GIMP is that image manipulation editor. And it is free to download online. If you search GIMP image manipulation, it should be the top result. So if you go into, I'm going to minimize this for a second. We'll open up Pixabay. So Pixabay has a bunch of free images and royalties free stock. So if you search, you can search anything on here. They've got like pretty much everything under the sun. So if you wanted to add in, let's say that you're doing like a digital skills thing. We'll search for computer. And then we'll just grab any one of these. What I'm looking for right now is that I want to add text on here. So I want to make sure that there's kind of an empty spot that I can add that text and people are going to be able to read it easily. So let's grab this one. I'm going to download. And now this is that pixel sizing on here. So you can match up these pixel sizes to make sure that you have images that will actually line up the way that you want them to. If the pixels aren't exactly perfect, then you can crop them so that they are. And so I usually just write down the pixel that I want it to be. So 1912 by, usually the full size image is 1912 by 1080, but we're going to shrink it anyway. So let's download it, save it. Then I'll open it into GIMP. So File, Open, and it's in my download folder. Go into the laptop that was just downloaded. Now the first thing I want to do is shrink it to this, to crop it and shrink it to the size it's actually going to be. So I'm going to go to the scale tool in the upper left, and I'll click on it. And I'm going to shrink this down to about a width of 300 pixels. So this would be if I'm adding in an image that's going to go into one of those image cap texts. So 300 pixels is about the right size if it's going to be like a 3-column layout. So 250 to 300 pixels is like a 3-column layout. If you're putting it into a sidebar, it's about 300 pixels wide. If it's going to be a header, it's about 1200 pixels wide. And if it's going to be a like something that you're going to put into Canva or like a social media flyer, I would recommend about, half a page wide is about 600 pixels. So about 600. So let's do that. 600. 800 will shrink it there. So now I'll right click and say layer and layer to image size. Oh. Right click. I'm going to crop it just a hair. And so I click the crop tool on the left, hit enter, and now we have our whole layer cropped to that size. Now I'll blow this up a little bit to about 100% using this little percent gauge on the bottom left. I'll add some text on here using the text tool, and then just draw a little text box like you would in any other editor. I'll change the font color so it's not white so you can actually read it. And I'll just use this random blue color just for an example. Audio editing 101. And so the reason that you can't see this text right now is because it's massive. It's 350 pixels high. So we're going to shrink it down, make it about 75 points, change the font color, change the font type. So the font type is in this, we can change it in this left corner here. And we'll just make it something random on here. You can change it to anything you want. And change the, so right now I'm changing the box size for where the text is going to fit in. and then I'll change it so that there's more of a margin. And I'll make a new box that says when it is. June 24th, 2021. Make it so it's not 350 pixels high, because that's a lot. And you can say where it is. So then you would export this file, export as, audio editing flyer, export it, and now you can, now that this is saved, you can import it into WordPress just anywhere you want to. All right, so we're at 5:03. Are there any questions about what we covered? Did you want me to go over anything else? I kind of threw a lot at you, so a lot of it's probably just going to be play with it as you go. There should be a recording of this if you want to review over anything we've gone through. There was a chat question about whether there was going to be a reference sheet. For now, I don't have one put together fully right now, but what I do have is so Nebraska Libraries on the web. If you Google that, it's the only thing that's called that right now. But if you go to Learn WordPress and Refresher Tutorials, there is a collection of tutorials that goes over some of the basics. And I put that into the chat. So hopefully that was helpful. And I am going to stop my screen share now.
Thank you, Amanda. And I will send out the recording link to everybody when it comes.
Perfect.
Probably tomorrow, though.
That is fair enough. Well, then, if there are no other questions, I will probably hop off, and you know where to find me.
Thank you.
Welcome.